First was asked to do this by Rishi quite a few months ago. I kind of visualised a small room with about 20 people in, and we could do some nice little activities in, you know, sort of small groups or pairs. I don't know if any of my ex-students are here, but if you know my lecturing style, I tend to be quite interactive, so it won't be 45 minutes to an hour listening to me. I'm going to actually get you to contribute as well. Oh no, they groan. We thought we'd come here for a bit of peace and quiet. But I did, in true lecturing style, put up some learning outcomes up there so you can see. You're going to be able to name the 5 ingredients of assertiveness, describe what assertiveness is, and identify situations where you'd like to improve your assertiveness. So what qualifies me to talk about assertiveness? Well, probably not much more than qualifies the rest of you to talk about it. But I worked for the university part-time, and for 12 years I was a licensed trainer for Springboard, which is a women's development program, and we used to run a whole day on assertiveness. So I'm trying to think, I need to wave my magic wand at you to sort of try and fit into an hour what we did in a whole day. But I'll give you a flavour of what assertiveness is, and then if there are any questions at the end, please ask them. And I also was thinking of including something on negotiation skills, but there really isn't time. But we can have maybe a quick rundown of what the ingredients are of negotiation skills, which is obviously very much related to assertiveness. So we'll look at the 5 ingredients, we'll describe what assertiveness is, and identify situations where you would like to improve your assertiveness. Normally I get people to practice, but what I'll get you to do is maybe discuss rather than practice, because it's, you know, it's a bit noisy, and you know, there's probably not enough time to actually practice, but you can discuss situations where you'd like to improve your own assertiveness. The other thing I think that qualifies me of practicing assertiveness, and it will probably qualify some views, who's got teenage children? Any who got teenage children? Yes! Toddlers, you know. So there are some techniques you can use with them. And I can do the epic fail at being assertiveness as well as the next person. You start off by being assertive, and I usually descend into being aggressive rather than being passive. Okay, so it isn't always about being assertive all the time, but we do our best. Okay, so let's see what we've got up here. So my first question to you, and I want you to discuss it in pairs or threes or whoever you're sitting next to, is what do you think assertiveness is? So really what's the difference between assertive, being aggressive, and being passive? So what are the ingredients? What do you think assertiveness is about? So could you just really quickly talk to the person next to you, or talk in threes or whatever, and discuss what you think assertiveness is? Have we got any contributions? What do we think assertiveness is? Anybody like to volunteer a contribution?
Yep.
Yep.
For me, it's being firm but fair.
Being firm but fair. Good one. Yeah. Being firm but fair. Thank you. Any more? Yeah.
It's about being direct in communication.
Being direct in communication.
The other person.
What was the last bit?
Without offending the other person.
Without offending the other person. Yes, that's the difficult bit, isn't it? Without offending the other person. Yes, yes. And when we talk about the fear of being assertive, that's one of the fears, is that we'll offend the other person. So we tend to do the huffing and puffing, don't we, rather than, if we get angry, or we tend to do the passive thing. But yes, that's a good one as well. So being firm and fair, being direct without offending the other person. Any others? Yes?
Establish make your boundary clear without it being aggressive. So let another party know where your limits are.
Right, so boundaries, yes, about boundaries as well, and limits, yeah, without being aggressive, yeah. Okay. So, any others? Yeah, sure.
In our conversation, there was another element to the issue of offending, the more introspective one, controlling your emotions, being able to get your point across while at the same time controlling your own emotions.
Okay.
So that you don't fall into being perceived as aggressive.
And so that's quite difficult sometimes, isn't it, in an emotional situation? How do you do that? How do you control your emotions when you're feeling emotional? What would you do? One of the things we talk about is actually expressing your emotions in terms of I. So when I'm going to talk to you about I feel this, not you have made me feel this. It's about that, having the control is about saying I. So, I feel angry about what you've said, or I feel upset about what has just been said, or whatever. So it's about that ownership. Once you say, you've made me feel, you're handing over the power to somebody else, aren't you? There was somebody at the back there you wanted to add something. No? No? Somebody had the hand up there at the back. Sorry, yeah?
Is it, say, defending your position, defending your point of view?
Defending your position?
Or point of view.
Or point of view, it could be. It could be, and you've got to decide. In negotiation terms, is that what's your bottom line? Is that worth defending? So you've got to think, how important is that to you? But yes, it can be defending your point of view. Yeah.
What I found useful in terms of controlling your emotions, more in the work environment.
Yeah.
If you've received an email and it's annoyed you, rather than responding straight away,
yes.
you write the email just before you send it, take a deep breath, walk away. And within 10 or 15 minutes, when you reread what you've wrote, you're like, that's a bit too harsh.
Yes, but make sure you don't click and send. Yeah. So sometimes it's about getting those emotions out, isn't it? It's a bit like we used to write things on a piece of paper and screw it up and put it in the bin, didn't we? Now it's, you're doing it electronically. Yeah, so that's...
You can set up rules in Outlook where you can, the email won't send straight away, send like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yes. Oh yeah, as long as you don't wander off and then I get in a conversation with somebody and forget that you were about to send it. But yeah, that's a good one as well. So yes, you're feeling angry about something, but you want to get those emotions out. That's all right when you're not face to face, isn't it? But yeah, a lot of mistakes can be made through sending the wrong sort of email, can't they? Yeah, you've got to stop and reflect. Somebody else wanted to say, so, yes? I'll come back to you and then you first. Yeah,
I was going to say it took a bit of confidence and courage as well, which you'll end up never asserting yourself. So you need a bit of confidence and courage.
You need confidence and courage. Because why? Why do we need confidence and courage to be assertive?
To back up your viewpoint, so that you look like you're in a position of, you know what you're saying, you kind of you understand the point of view and you're trying to get across.
Yes, yeah. That's okay, isn't it, when you've had time to prepare for that sort of thing. Sometimes when you're on the hoof, that might be more difficult. But there's what's behind the confidence and courage thing? What do we fear? Sorry?
Maybe it's to others to that fear that we have about upsetting the other party.
A fear about upsetting the other party. I said I'd come back to you.
I nearly lost what I was doing.
Ah, sorry, I'll come back to you. Go on.
I'll
I'll think about it, yeah?
It's about recognizing that you're not reacting, you're being proactive in the sense that you're not letting somebody lead your emotion, as it were. That you're not just like acting on emotion, you're reacting to whatever is presented.
Yes.
But to take charge, as you said, about ownership of that emotion, because at the end of the day, it's whether you're letting somebody else dictate how you're going to
Yes, yes, that's that thing about ownership, isn't it? And I. Yes, yes. Yes.
You've got to be positive. You've got to be positive in what you're doing and how you feel and how you approach the situation.
That's a good point. You've got to feel positive yourself. If you're expressing doubt, then there's going to be doubt with other people, aren't there? So you've got to be positive about how you feel. Thank you.
In terms of the confidence piece, the opposite to assertive, opposite traits
Yes.
are being passive
Uh-huh.
and being submissive.
Yes.
And those are traits that doesn't exuberate confidence.
That's right. Okay. You've read my lecture notes, haven't you? Okay. So let's move on. Unless there's any more burning things that people want to say, I'm quite happy to take some more.
Fear of confrontation.
Yes, that is a really good one. Or if I say this, he or she might say that, or they might stop speaking to me, or this might happen, and that is always that fear, isn't it? That embedded fear we have if I'm assertive. But if you look at it another way, if you're being aggressive, people are wondering, well, why are you being aggressive? Or if you're actually just being passive, people actually don't understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to get across. So being assertive, what is being assertive? Well, some brilliant definitions from you, but it's the form of behaviour which demonstrates, I'll look at my notes, your self-respect and respect for others. It's also concerned with dealing with your own feelings about yourself and other people as much as with the end result. Are there any surprises about those as definitions of assertiveness? Some people are pulling faces. I'm good on body language. I can see people. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, the first one.
The first one, yeah? Yeah. What do you think?
To be assertive is about your self-respect.
It's about respecting yourself and respecting others. Yeah. Yeah, a surprise? Yeah? Why? Why is it a surprise? Not just you, but maybe other people as well? So you think that's surprising?
It's more about thinking about the others. So refusing to do things in a way that you don't affect others.
Okay, so we talk about refusing to do things. And I noticed that Rishi had entitled this lecture, The Art of Saying No. Okay? So assertiveness might not always be about saying no. It might be about negotiating other things, and we'll come on to that. But maybe try saying no. Turn to the person next to you and say no.
No.
No. Thank you. Yay! No. I would like you, please, to turn to the person next to you and say no. See what happens. I like your style. Okay, you're giving out. Are any of you saying no? Right, well, you're really giving out mixed messages because I can see you all smiling. You're all smiling, saying no. I would say there are situations where you will say no, but there are other situations where you will use other assertiveness techniques. Saying no, I think, is the most difficult one to do. And it requires you to keep a straight face. I did it with somebody today. Somebody asked me something and I just said no. I didn't say, oh no, sorry, I can't do that. I just said no. And kept a straight face. And again, bring back the teenage analogy. Can I borrow some money, Mum? No. Yes, but no. I've already given you my answer. My answer is no. My poor child.
But a child will always negotiate.
Sorry?
I say a child will always negotiate. Why?
Yes. And even when you say this isn't negotiable, yeah.
The
But why? But they'll say, but why? Yes, you're right. So one of the things I've done is, I'll mention this book at the end. It actually, there's a good book you can read, and it actually talks about when you're saying no, how the persistence of other people, how to deal with that persistence. It might be a child, it might be somebody else. You know, they're coming up with all sorts of reasons, and we'll look at the thing on persistence. So maybe a bit of surprise about the first one. And the second one, I think a lot of you expressed that when I first talked. Yes, sure.
Before we proceed, what about saying, I'll think about it?
Yes. Right, well, we'll come on to that, because you can say, I think about it. But I think you need to be more precise than I think about it. So if somebody says to you, and you're in a work situation, I'd like you to get this done today, and I need it, I'm absolutely desperate, I'm really, you know, I'm getting very stressed, I need this by 5 p.m. You might not say, I'll think about it. You might actually say, what you might actually say is, well, I also have got a lot of work, and I have some other priorities, but I can get it to you for tomorrow afternoon. So that's called asking for time in assertiveness terms. So different situations will, you know, need different solutions in terms of being assertive. You know, if your boss is coming in to say you need to do something, it's in your contract, you're not just going to say no, are you? I'll think about it. No. So you need to assess the situation, and I'm going to get you later to think about a situation where you'd like to be assertive. So we've got those two things. So we've got, one of the difficulties I think as well is if you just started being assertive and you've always been either passive or aggressive in the past, you've already been kind of stereotyped and pigeonholed, haven't you, into being, oh, Linda's such a nice person, she'll do that, won't she? And, you know, we'll kind of put on her to do it, or oh, she's going to be a bit aggressive, I don't know how to handle this. They're not used to you being assertive. So it's sometimes you need to take small steps towards assertiveness and start off. Some people start off with the most difficult things, and others start with the easiest things. You know, they'll say, oh, my most easy thing to do would be such and such, and I think I'll start practicing there. Others really kind of launch in and think, really, I'm going to go for this. And, you know, either way works depending on who you are, you know, and how you want to do it. Right. So, my next question is to you. What sort of person do you think you are? Talk to the person next to you and say whether you think you're passive, aggressive, or assertive. I'm not going to ask you. Right. Possibly let's have show of hands. How many people think? The shush often works, doesn't it? I should have brought my whistle. Right, maybe we'll have a show of hands. Maybe the first lot of people won't put their hands up. Because how many of you think that you are passive? Oh, a few people aren't that passive. That surprises me. That surprises me, actually, because of the question, the responses that have been coming forward. How many people think they're aggressive? And how many people think they're assertive? Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a trick question, really, because we all display that spectrum of behaviours, don't we? We all say, oh, so-and-so's an aggressive person, but they might be more likely to be aggressive than passive, or they might be more likely to be passive than aggressive, or they may be passive-aggressive. But, yeah, you do get people who are passive-aggressive, and I think that's sometimes the most annoying form of behaviour, yeah. But we all display that spectrum, don't we? So what we're working towards is being more assertive than we are already, and starting to think about some of the patterns of our behaviour that make us aggressive or passive. Okay? So we're often a mixture. And I think we're different, aren't we, in different situations? How many people feel that they're assertive at work, but they're more aggressive or passive at home? I mean, you know, because I think feelings come into it, don't they? If my 18-year-old son's winding me up, notches, the notches go up and up, I start to feel aggressive. I never feel aggressive at work. I never feel like that. Even if, you're being really challenged and so on, it doesn't happen to me. It's those emotions coming in. So you'll feel, some of you are going to feel that you're assertive at work, but maybe passive at home or aggressive at home, and vice versa. And for you to think of a situation today that you'd like to tackle, it's just very personal to you. It might be a work situation, it might be a home situation, personal situation. So I asked you earlier if you've dealt with toddlers or teenagers. Now, we all want to be assertive, don't we? But, oh no, I've got these are all kind of, that was what I wanted to show you. So we want our children to be pliable and, well, we're stereotyping for clarity here. We want our children to be pliable and we don't want them to be assertive, but when they grow up, we'd like them to be assertive. But the serious point to this is, it goes back to our childhood, doesn't it, where we're told to do certain things and told to behave in certain ways. So often, that kind of passive behaviour, or even the aggressive stuff where we stomp off and do things, goes back to childhood. So, my next question, I'll go back to the previous slide. I seem to have got these in the wrong order. So why bother? Why bother with assertive? It's just easy just to be passive, isn't it? Why do we bother with assertiveness? Yeah?
Our needs are not met if we do not bother.
Our needs are not met if we
don't bother.
If we don't bother, our needs are not met. Yeah, absolutely true. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
You don't get extremely stressed if you're being asked to do something.
Exactly. We internalise it, don't we?
We say, yeah, we're going to do, I'll do that for you. And
yes.
Deep down you can't. So
yes.
if you were assertive, you wouldn't back that.
Yes, that's right. So we start to feel stressful, and even if we do decide to do it, we might want to do it more on our own terms, within our own time frame. So yes, the stress is a big thing, and we internalise. I'm playing with the microphone now. We internalise those things. Yeah.
Over the long term, if you don't get your needs met, then you've got all this stress building up.
Yes.
It's a surefire way to get depression.
Yes, exactly. So mental health can be an issue. Yeah, and yeah, I think that is a really serious point. Absolutely true. Yeah.
You want to get your message across.
Uh-huh.
So you have to be assertive.
You have to be assertive to get your message across. And we're going to actually look at the 5 ingredients in a minute for getting those messages. But we'll look at the need for assertiveness as well. Yeah?
I was going to say, in a business situation, you need to look confident and being assertive rather than kind of being aggressive or kind of like not caring.
Okay.
Makes you look more credible.
Right. So in a business situation, we need to look more confident. So you mentioned the word look. And we'll look, one of the things we talk about, look, what does that imply then? Looking more confident. Body language, yeah? So we'll look at that in a minute. Yeah, sure?
Yeah, when we are assertive, we have more confidence and we can easily influence in others.
Yes.
Yes, and then achieve what we would like them to believe on.
That's right, so we could, yeah.
We want to.
Other people have confidence in us, yeah? And helps us to achieve things, yeah?
In a business environment or a team environment, out of the 3 business traits, assertiveness drives collaboration most.
Uh-huh.
And it also creates a win-win solution.
Yes.
For parties.
Okay. So what's your name? Andrew's now talking about win-win, which is one of the things we talk about in negotiation skills. So you can have the sort of win-win, win-lose and lose-lose. And I years ago did a trade union course in negotiation. And I always remember the phrase, always leave your opponent with enough money for the bus fare home. Which is about, don't completely wipe somebody out. If you're negotiating with them, make sure that you do that. So assertiveness drives those other things, what you're saying. Yeah? Okay. Somebody else?
to avoid being dumped on. That's why you need to bother, because otherwise...
Your own self-esteem and so on. So, yeah, good expression. To avoid being dumped on. Yeah, okay. So that's why we bother. Yeah?
So sometimes we forget that if we don't deal with it, other people will have to. And that's why often, like many, many years later, tragedy are coming up because some people haven't dealt with it.
Yes.
With things that needed to be addressed assertively. And that's the consequence for others is massive.
Okay. Can you give an example of what you mean there?
Well, let's say like in families, for example, where there is abuse going on.
Okay.
And, you know, some people have to be confronted.
Okay.
Or at work when somebody's being bullied. And
Yes.
nobody does anything about
Okay.
it.
One word of warning I would use there is if bullying is involved or there's any danger to yourself, it isn't just about being assertive, it's about having the weight of the organisation behind you, looking at bullying policies, those sorts of things. So don't feel that it's all about you. I would say if definitely there's bullying involved, you can actually address that by being more assertive, because bullies quite often, or bullying behaviour quite often, is drawn to people who obviously you're not going to fight back. But I would say make sure that you look at what policies your organisations have got and those sorts of things.
And that takes us assertiveness.
And that takes assertiveness as well, doesn't it? So if you're taking out a case against somebody, that actually you're right, that you need to be assertive. So,
can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I think that sometimes women can be understood if they're being assertive. It can be mistaken for, it can be termed as being aggressive.
Yes.
Whereas if a man is being assertive,
Yes.
it's more accepted because
Yes.
they're male.
Yes, because of gender expectations of the way we will behave. Yeah?
Because it's like being stereotyped. Women
Yes.
are expected to be passive and like you're the caregiver, so you always should be more behave like a female, not being aggressive.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that is true. I think that is a big issue. Particularly, yes, I mean, things like body language. Oh, she looks aggressive. If you're standing in a certain way. So that can be an issue. That it's construed as being aggressive as opposed to being assertive. Yeah?
I was just going to say, to echo that lady's point, men don't get called bossy.
Yes. Yes. That's true.
Specifically, I would say part of assertiveness is about commitment. Following with assertiveness is commitment. You can only commit to so much.
Yes.
You know what your existing commitments are and taking on something new.
Right.
Finding yourself in the centre of it when you're asked, and trying to be assertive and, dealing with the request assertively.
Yes. So being clear about what your commitments are is what you're saying there. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, further to that lady's point about the gender differences.
Yes.
I think that seems to be specifically relevant in kind of pay negotiations and things. I think often men are more likely to go in with really assertive, ideas and to be able to negotiate better. But
Right.
I mean, personally, I tend to kind of just sit back and I know from experience and from speaking to friends and things that they're like, well, why don't you ask? Every time you have a meeting, why don't you ask? It's like, well, I'd never do that.
Yes.
I think there is a kind of gender thing there as well.
Yes. So there's some sort of gender issue. I can see the men looking a bit quizzical here. Not sure about this. I mean, research has shown that there is the research has shown that is the case, and that if women are assertive, they're seen as a little bit of a threat. Obviously not with all men, but with certain men, it's seen as a threat. And that's something that we need to bear in mind, but not be fearful of. Yes.
The problem is sometimes if you're being assertive in that, if you're coming up against someone that's aggressive,
Yes.
you get what I mean, that they're not going to see you as being assertive.
That's right.
If you're assertive and you're coming up against someone that's assertive, then it'd go down quite well.
Yes, that's what we always used to say on the Springboard course. The problem is not everybody's been on an assertiveness course, that you've got to be dealing with people who are aggressive, but it's about how you handle that aggressiveness. And, it's about, we talked earlier about expressing in terms of I, how...
That's what makes it so daunting.
Yes, it can be. It can be. And sometimes you just got to take small steps to get there, rather than think it's baby steps. It's rather, I'm going to be swirls rounding cloak, the assertive person by tomorrow. It's just thinking about small steps, action points you can take to be assertive.
I doubting myself almost. But I know I'm right before I open my mouth, but then when I'm in that situation and I start saying stuff and people are coming up against me, I start doubting what I'm saying then.
Yes.
I feel so... Do you get what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean. It depends on whether they're just expressing another opinion or you feel it's a personal attack. I can remember years ago somebody said to me, oh, it was a woman actually, it wasn't a man, and you've got such strong opinions on equal opportunities, Linda, but you don't have any children, do you? And you've no idea what it's like, and actually I just said to her, why are you talking to me like that? And she actually just completely backed down, because I felt it was a personal attack. If she'd have said, well, I've got a different opinion on you to equality and about gender, I would have accepted that, but it was about personally having a go at me, because, you've got to differentiate between the two, I think, but you're right.
And it's quite hard to think on your feet when you're in that situation. You go away and
Okay.
I should have said that, and I should have said this. When you're in a situation like that, I can't think that.
Well, you don't always have to think that quickly. Sometimes it's about going away and maybe going back and saying, I was thinking about what you said earlier, and so you've practiced it and go back and talk about it. It's not always about feeling really beat up because, oh, I wish I'd have said that, I wish I'd said that. One more and then we'll...
There was some research that actually talked about this point. It was about the best behaviour trait to deal with an aggressive person. And the research showed that the best way to deal with an aggressive person is to be assertive.
Yes.
Fighting an aggressive person with an aggressive person. Fighting fire with fire.
Yes.
Putting a passive person against an aggressive person is an imbalance.
Okay.
The passive person will basically get eaten alive. But when you put an aggressive person against an assertive person,
yes.
If the person stays assertive, you'll find that the aggressive person draws towards the assertive person.
Yes.
Because they're not fighting them with fire.
No.
At the same time, they're being firm.
Yes.
Being passive.
Yes.
So the aggressive person actually thinks,
yes.
why am I being aggressive? And they will lower their tone.
Yes.
If the person stays assertive.
Yeah. So so that's a very good point. It's and a good argument for being assertive, isn't it? Yeah. So let's have a look at why bother. You've come up with some really good points there. These are some of the points that right. And I think one of them was about the stress, wasn't it? Reduces stress, yeah, that was one that people brought up. There's no mixed messages. Increases your self-confidence, I think we've all talked about that. Your relationships are based on reality. Makes you feel better as you're expressing your feelings, others understand clearly what you're thinking, feeling and saying, and so on. That relationships are based on reality, for me, that's really important, isn't it? If you're asking somebody to do something and they say, well, yes, they can do it, and then they're huffing and puffing and saying, oh, God, you think, well, why have they said they can do something when they can't do it? Why did not be honest and truthful and open? And if that leads to both people being a lot more assertive. So the stress thing that reduces it, that's really important. If we're holding things inside us, either passively or aggressively, then it does lead to not only mental health problems, it can actually lead to physical health problems, can't it? So those are the reasons why we need to bother. Yeah.
I'm a bit surprised that meeting your needs and protecting somebody's safety is not part of that list, because they're quite important. That's what I was saying earlier. Like if you're in charge of somebody's safety,
yes,
then that's really essential to be assertive.
It could be in a certain context, yes. So meeting your needs and protecting somebody's safety, yeah. And again, my little health warning on that will be: just be careful if you're protecting somebody else's safety, that you protect your own safety as well. Yeah, yeah. So yes, it depends on context. So that is another good one. Yeah. Okay. Can I move on? Anybody else want more comments?
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, are you going to change the slide?
Yes, I was. Do you want to? I'll give you a bit longer. Yeah. We'll have a little chat amongst ourselves. Do I need to move on quickly? Do I? All right. Okay. What did you say, Rishi?
We'll be
sending out the slides. Okay, so I'll move on. Right, these are the 5 ingredients of assertiveness. And I'm going to get you to do a little exercise with the person next to you in a minute. I'm not going to get you to role play, don't worry. Don't worry. But I'm going to get you to do a little exercise where you think of a situation where you like to be assertive. So listening is the most important aspect of listening is about paying good attention, isn't it? So that genuine understanding can be demonstrated. So how do you demonstrate genuine understanding when you're listening? Body language. Tell me a bit more about body language. Eye contact, nodding, the way that you're facing the person.
Posture.
Sorry?
Posture.
Posture, your posture, yes. Paraphrasing, all those sorts of things. All those sorts of things that we teach on a careers guidance course as well. So yes, so demonstrating your understanding, the sort of non-verbal stuff, and then the paraphrasing, the little ums and so on. So demonstrate, which sometimes feelings get in the way, don't they? You want to get your 2 penn'orth worth in, so you're not listening. You stop listening because what's running through your head is all the things you want to say. But if you can listen, it's really powerful. Demonstrate that you understand. So, by feeding back to the person what you've heard, what they've said. Say how you think and feel. And the reason I put you in capitals there, it's about this I thing. This is the way I feel. Not you've made me feel this way, but this is how I feel. Okay? Say specifically what you want to happen. And work out joint solutions and consequences. Consequences are the things that worry us, aren't they? They're the things we think, oh, if I'm assertive with that person, what will be the consequence of that? Well, I always think, well, actually, what's the worst thing that can happen? So, think about what the consequences might be, but don't let that put you off being assertive. And you'll come away kind of feeling a lot better about yourself, and you may have had a more useful dialogue with the person that you want to be assertive with. So what I'm going to ask you to do is think of a situation where you'd like to be assertive. Write it down and then describe it to the person next to you. You can either practice or discuss it using those 5 ingredients. So when you've made a note of what you'll be doing here, I'll go back to the 5 ingredients. So think of a situation where you'd like to be assertive, write it down, then describe it to the person next to you, and then think how you'll use those 5 ingredients. Okay? Do you want me to go back to the 5 ingredients? You seen enough of that? Right. You can do it with the person next to you, or you can move around the room. You can be assertive and move.
Can I have the whole series by email?
Yeah, Rishi's going to send them out.
The alumni.
Yeah. Rishi at the back there will send them. So. Maybe if you turn the person behind you and talk to them, maybe. Sound like a snake. Shh. I know I haven't given you long for that, but you get a flavour of it. And what I'd like you to do is actually think about those 5 ingredients, maybe jot them down, take that home and think about how you will deal with that situation using those 5 ingredients. You know, which one do you guess people find most difficult?
Probably number 3.
Yes, exactly, absolutely spot on. Whenever I run practice, and we run big practice, used to run big practice sessions on springboard training, was people would not actually be clear about what they thought and felt.
Also, number 3, I think you're going down the road of emotions.
Well, no, you're not really, because you're actually saying, this is how I feel. And yeah, you're talking about feelings, but you're actually saying, rather than, you know, sort of bursting into tears or waving your arms about in an angry way, you're actually saying, Andrew, I feel really angry about this. You know, and that's really powerful. Or I feel really upset about this. You might be near to tears, but to express that is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with expressing how you think and feel. But what people do is they display it in other ways, don't they? They either act in, if they're passive, or they're mainly passive, or they act out by being aggressive and, you know, showing aggressive behaviour. So I actually think that number 3 is because the way we're conditioned is we don't. You say, I mean, it sounds like a weakness, doesn't it? You know, when you're saying I feel angry or I feel upset, it sounds like it's a weakness. But people can tell if you're angry or upset by your body language, can't they? So I would say it's a very powerful tool to actually say what you think and what you feel, but it's what you think and what you feel. It's not the way you're making me feel. Once you give that power to the other person, you've lost the argument. It's about how you think and feel, because you should have, you know, it's about you taking the control.
I think another constraint on this is also cultural.
Yes.
Generally speaking, the British are not very direct.
Yes.
The British do not say what they think or feel.
Well, I'm from Yorkshire, so I've toned it down a lot over the years, you know. But you're right.
If you work with the Dutch or the German.
Yes, they're very direct, yeah. The Germans, I know, got Germans in the... Yeah, so they are very direct. But yeah, it is partly cultural. We don't want to offend or upset people. We always say... You know, I even noticed, regardless of the politics of the yes or the no vote in Scotland, it was yes or no, thank you. Wasn't it? No, thank you. It didn't just say no. It said no, thank you. So that I want you to take away and think about, and think of your scenario, think how you'll deal with it. You know, I actually wouldn't start off, if it was me, I'd start off with an easy scenario to deal with and then kind of graduate upwards. It's a bit like learning, isn't it? You get on that learning curve. Yeah?
What do you do when you're expressing how you're feeling and the person goes, well, that's wrong? Or, I know
only you can say how you feel, can't you? They can.
But how do you verb that?
Well, I would say, well, you actually don't know how I feel. That's the powerful thing about the I. You don't actually know how I feel. This is how I'm feeling. So I am telling you how I'm feeling. You might say it's wrong. How do you know it's wrong? You're not me. This is what I'm feeling. Okay. And that might lead on to other techniques. But we'll look at next, and then move on to that. Body language. We talked a little bit about body language, didn't we? So the body language needs to match the words, doesn't it? You need to look confident. You need to look assertive. So what I want to ask you to do...
Sorry, I was just thinking about that. Let's say how you feel.
Yes.
How you feel and what you think.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I mean, you know,
I think a lot of people do. That's the most difficult thing to do. I think you're right.
I've worked in local government for however many years.
Yeah.
Well over 10 years. And to be quite honest, no one really bothered what you think or what you feel. You just paid
But unless you say it, I think unless you express it, you need to feel good about yourself. So unless you express it, whether they're bothered or not is another matter.
Tell them that. I know you don't care, but...
Well, no, you don't even need to say you don't care, but you're actually assuming that they don't care. But actually, there may be other people that feel exactly the same as you do. But it's not presupposing what they're thinking or whether they care. It's this is how I feel as a result of something that's happened. And expressing it can be very powerful. And I'm with you. I know it's not easy. It's a difficult thing to do. And I would say out of the 5 that we put up there, it's the most difficult thing to do. And people do... Well... it's maybe less fruitless than not saying anything. Yeah?
Fair enough.
Because if you don't say anything, another thing you can do is choose not to say anything. As long as that hasn't made your gut wrench and made you feel bad about yourself. So, yes, so you sometimes can choose, you can actually choose not to say anything. And that can be an assertive thing as well, can't it? I just want to ask, yeah, sure? Yes?
So I'm just thinking about the previous slide, and actually what I found is useful with clients is to tell them, write down what it is you're going to say in terms of your preparing your message.
Yes.
When you take 5 days to return my phone calls, I feel let down.
Yes.
I would like you to return my phone calls within 24 hours.
Yes.
And have it
Absolutely brilliant. That's a really brilliant...
go away.
Yeah.
And then you've always got something to look back to.
Yes. So write it down, say what you would like to happen. Yeah. And actually that's giving you the breathing space to say what you want. Yeah. Thank you.
But are you required to expect something to happen though? As people previously said. Sometimes, and if you say yourself, you've got to assume that the person you're talking to doesn't really care.
Yes, but you care about yourself, don't you?
Absolutely.
You care about yourself.
But then the end thing is that after you've done all these things,
Yeah.
do you expect something to happen? After you've been assertive.
Well, it isn't always about the outcome. It might not. It might be partly about the outcome, but it's actually the process, isn't it, that's important. If it makes you feel better and you still don't get the outcome you want, at least you know you've tried. Yeah. So it's at least I know I've tried there and I've done something about it. What I would like you to do is, I would like this half of the room to sit passively. And if you can manage it, this half of the room to kind of look aggressive. I don't know if you can manage that. Or sit aggressively. Can you sit aggressively? I don't know. But this half of the room, can you look passive for me? I know it's difficult. And I want you to look aggressively at the passive people. So, oh my, I'm frightened. Yeah. Please up. Yeah. Get up if you like. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, right now, can everybody look? Can you sit or stand, if you like, assertively? Can you stand or sit assertively? So, what's the difference then? Sometimes arms akimbo can be a little bit, can't it? But it can be. Open body language is more assertive, isn't it? What we women are not used to doing is standing, planting ourselves and standing. You know, so if we were giving a lecture or whatever. I once gave a talk to quite an aggressive trade union audience about self-organised groups, and they were against it and I was for it. And my foot was going like this. So they could sense, well, they knew that I was kind of nervous. Planting yourself helps, and I think men are better at that than we women, because we learn to be dainty, don't we, and not to, you know, we stand like this, it's kind of seen, as you say, seen as being an aggressive thing. But it's about being open, body language being open. Now, I'm actually going to tower over somebody. I think I'll choose you to tower over. What would you do if, you know, if I was towering over you like this? It feels, how does that feel?
It's all right for me.
It's all right for you?
It's all right because you didn't swear to me.
All right. Okay. How would it feel if somebody would normally be towering over you? Intimidating. Yes. What would you do? Just stand up. Yeah, just stand up. If I'm close to you, stand up. Yes, thank you.
Then but isn't it like I am responding?
Oh yes, but I'm towering over you. I'm trying to intimidate you. So you stand up. It's like if somebody's at the back of your chair, turn around and stand up. Again, if that's about sexual harassment, bullying, you need to do something more about it than your own assertive behaviour. But, you know, those are things that you can look at. So the words need to match, the body language needs to match the words. If you'd have come into this lecture and I said, I'm going to talk to you today about being assertive. what would you have thought? You know, you would... What? Everybody leaves the room now. So, I can't remember the statistics, and I'm hopeless at remembering statistics, but it's something like 75% is to do with the image you project and your body language, and only something low, about 7% or something, is about the words. That doesn't add up to 100, I know, but I knew you'd know.
60% is your body language.
Yes.
About 20% is what you actually say, and the remaining 20% is the tone in which you say it.
Okay. I actually think it's probably less than that for what you actually say. I think.
Give or take.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. I'll give you that. So a lot of body language is very important, isn't it? So it's about how we look assertive to match the words that we're using instead of looking passive or aggressive. The waving the arms around, I wave my arms around a lot, but sometimes you've got to think about how is that appearing to other people. So it might, especially in particular situations. So it's maybe about just centering yourself and trying to look assertive, and then the words will come. So I know that we're running out of time because I'm blethering on and you've been really taking part well, but other techniques, we talked about learning to say no. I've got you to do that little thing. I think learning to say no requires you to, in terms of body language, not to smile. You can't say, oh no, no. It has to be no. No. Doesn't have to be aggressive, but it has to be a no. Broken record technique. Anybody come across the broken record technique? Yeah? Can anybody demonstrate the broken record? Or give me an example of what the broken record technique is? It's a bit old-fashioned now, isn't it? Because we don't have those records. Well, we do have vinyl, I suppose. Broken record technique is just repeating what you want, what you require. Now, the difficulty with that is people try and hook you in, don't they? Teenage son scenario again. I was really disappointed when I came back, and I just felt disgusted because the toilet was so dirty. Too much information, I know. You never clean the toilet. You don't clean the toilet. I'd like you to clean the toilet. Oh, Mum, you're always going on at me, and I'm not the worst person, and you should live with other people, and this, and this, and you keep coming back. No, my point is, I'd like you to clean the toilet. That's my point. So keep on, and actually it can go on for quite some time, sometimes. Broken record techniques, and we do it with toddlers, don't we, as well? We do that with toddlers. We keep on repeating calmly what we'd like to happen. With teenagers, they're trying to hook us in. Well, that's your fault because this, and this. And I've got hooked into that. My mistake is you get hooked into those arguments which are not related to what you're actually trying to say. Yeah? You're nodding in recognition with me there, yeah? But it's about making sure that you keep to the point that you started off with. So avoid the hooks and going off at a tangent. And this is a useful book for looking at that, which is the Ken, and I'll put the list up at the end, Ken and Kate Back book, Assertiveness at Work. Although it says assertiveness at work, it can apply to other situations. And there's a bit in here that talks about those handling persistence, talks about, and hints for handling persistence. There's lots of win-win, giving out win-win vibes. There's lots of really useful stuff in that. I'm not on commission, I don't know them. But that is a book that I've used, over the years. So it's worth thinking about that. Right. And I would say, finally, don't beat yourself up if you're not assertive all the time. Don't feel guilty that sometimes you've been passive or sometimes you've been aggressive. We're all human, and I think it's about actually, well, next time I will do it that way. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.